Let's talk about web forms. Okay? Let me just go ahead and just say, start off by just saying my name is Travis Tidwell. You can find me on Drupal. I'm Drupal user 98581. I've been around for about 5 years doing Drupal, doing development. I started pretty much how everyone started with Drupal as a hobbyist, and then it just kind of built into my full-time career. And so now I'm happy to be doing it full-time. Speaking of full-time career, I work for allplayers.com, which I am going to go into a little bit of detail about All Players later on in the presentation, so you guys will get an idea of just kind of what we do, and also some really unique use cases on how we are using Webform in what I consider a very groundbreaking way. So, why talk about Webforms? That's the big question. Why do we even want to bring this up? And as a developer / site builder, I'll be quite frank and say that I really just don't give a damn about web forms. And the reason is because it's one of those things that, let's say I'm given a site to work on and the client says, oh man, I really want this form. As a developer, it's an afterthought. It's one of those things you don't think about. In fact, you say, yeah, I'll quote you 2 hours. Actually, you know what? I'm just going to throw that in just because it's so easy. And it's not that difficult. Let's not worry about it. So, why do we want to talk about web forms? Well, I'm going to make a very, very bold statement about web forms. And that bold statement is, web form is the second most valuable module in Drupal. Notice I didn't say one of the most valuable modules. I said it is the second most valuable module. And this is the part where all the developers in the house say, what? Right? Of course, you're like, wait a second. What about CTools? What about views? What about all these amazing modules that are way more important than web form? Well, notice I didn't say important. I said valuable. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about value here. That's what I'm going to start off by talking about. The first question I want us to answer is what makes your website valuable? In fact, that's what this entire presentation is going to be about. I'm going to talk a little bit about web forms. I'm going to go into some detail, but I'm going to get into a little bit of a discussion on value. Well, there's a lot of things that bring value to a website, but let's discuss the 3 topmost items: content, traffic, and user information. If you have these 3 things, your website is valuable. But there's something really cool about these 3 things. They are dependent on one another. You can't have one without the other. In fact, it's kind of this trickle-down effect. You start with good content. In fact, that is everyone's very first objective. Let's get good content on this website. You get good content, what does that bring? Good content brings traffic to your website, theoretically. There's people that like to skip good content part and get into traffic by itself, but those are spammers. They're cheating. The point is it doesn't work. You start with good content. From good content, you get traffic. What is the final result here? What is everyone's end goal? Traffic provides user information. Every website you go to that tries to get traffic, that tries to put good content, their end goal is to collect user information. Why? This is why. There is one website out there that is an expert at this: Facebook. Let's take a look at this. How much value is in the information? Look, and actually, this isn't the actual number yet, but that's what they project it to be worth. Value. Is Facebook really awesome content? No. It doesn't have. I mean, yeah, Farmville. I mean, that's fine. I mean, Facebook is not necessarily good content. Facebook, what makes them so valuable is they have user information.
Insignia went off the other 2.
Yeah, it's all about the user information. So now, what's really interesting is whenever people talk about, they give these presentations and they talk about Drupal, And they give these presentations over these modules that do these amazing things like views, and they talk about C-tools, and they talk about panels, and then they talk about all these really media front. They talk about all these modules that do these really cool stuff.
Now we know what the first one.
Yeah. So they talk about all these things that do these really amazing things, but they're only talking about providing content. Those modules are the starting point. Drupal is good for content. SEO, if you have good SEO, that brings in the traffic. Okay? Keep in mind, these are all highly important things. But what is good for user information? In fact, how many presentations do you go and find out about this? How do you get user information? How do you go about doing it? And the problem is not enough focus is put on user information. Data collecting. Getting data from the people who visit your site is the most valuable thing you can do to your website, period. And I think there's a lot of use cases that prove that. So, how do we get user information? That's the big question. Well, as far as I'm concerned, there's two big players here. User module and Webforms. And notice whenever I first started off this presentation, I said that Webform is the second most valuable module in Drupal. The reason is because, well, it just doesn't compete with the user module, because the user module is what gets people on your website, and that is the users table. Webform is a very, very close second, and the reason is it provides supplemental data. In fact, it can collect data on users who aren't even a part of your site. Passersby, people that just want to provide information about themselves. And guess what? If a passerby comes in and types something in about themselves, and you have the IP address and you have all these information, which Webform does collect, that is valuable, which is why everybody should be using it. So if you go to the Webform module, and I think this is a big reason why Webform does not get enough attention, is because it comes across in a way that I feel it's almost like it's a very humble module, when really this first sentence should be like, you know what, I'm the shit. Everyone should use me. But what does it say? This first sentence says Webform is a module for making surveys in Drupal. And this is like, I'm already bored with this module from the very first sentence. It's about making surveys. Okay, yeah, it kind of is about making surveys, but let's talk about what Webform really is. It is a module that will make your site valuable if you know how to use it and you know where to put these forms, where to collect data. So, you get it, right? I don't think I have to lecture anymore. I don't think I have to be on my soapbox. I think everyone gets that, okay, here is a module that is important. To me, it's important to my site, it's important to my objectives. In fact, my site would not be valuable without something like it. Of course, you can use the user profile module in really certain ways to get this value, but let's talk about the Webform module. So what I'm actually going to do is go through a little bit of a demo. I'm going to show you what Webform is. I'm going to show you how you can use it in some really cool ways. I'm also going to show you how to configure it. Okay? And also kind of build out some specific use cases with Webform. There's some really cool projects as far as like providing alternate UIs for Webforms that I'd like to go over. But after we wrap up the demo, and typically whenever I give presentations, I'm very demo focused. Like I focus the entire presentation on the demo because that's how you learn, that's how you understand. But what I'd like to do is end up this presentation by showing you a very interesting use case that All Players has come up with Webform. And in fact, I think it's groundbreaking in a way that it's very interesting. So what I'm going to talk about is I'm going to do some demos, but I want some time at the end of this to come back and show you how All Players is using Webform. And as far as I'm concerned, is a very groundbreaking way of an application. All right, so it is demo time. Let me close Skype so nobody bothers me. So here is a fresh install of Drupal 7 I unfortunately had to install MAMP because my server crashed last night, which my local server, and I didn't have enough time to get it up and going, so I had to install MAMP, which is fairly simple. The first thing I want to show you guys is this is a base Drupal 7 install. And of course, where does everybody start? They start by installing modules, and they go in and they install the right modules. So let me just first go over some of the modules that I had to download. The first one, of course, being CTools. I think this is like a dependency for every module now. Form Builder is a module that I'm going to show about providing an alternate UI for Webform that I think you guys are going to be blown away with. But we're not going to use Form Builder right away. We're going to end up using that later on in the presentation. Views, of course, everyone knows what that is. That's for building certain views, which Webform has a really good views integration. I'll go kind of in detail on that. And then, of course, Webform. And then there's this project that's also real interesting called Webform Alternate UI. I might show you this, but it's kind of busted right now, so I don't know if I want to show you that or not. I think by showing you Form Builder, you guys are just going to say, okay, that's all I really need. Webform with Form Builder. But let's just start with Webform. When you first install Webform, what it actually does is it provides for you a content type called Webform. So the second you install this thing and you go to Structure and you go to Content Types, the first thing you'll notice is a new content type called Webform. I think this is so generic that it confuses people. They see this and they're like, Webform, awesome. What do I do now? Like, what are you actually doing with this? Well, a web form, really all it does is it provides a configurable form on the node display. That's what it does. So you have regular content types, you have regular nodes, and you can use CCK, or not CCK, it's not CCK anymore. You can use the field API to set all your fields up on your node, but all of that's within the back end. Okay, I want to edit this node and I've got all these fields. What if you want to display a form actually on the field or on the node? That is what Webform provides, and it just provides this out of the box just to be helpful. What's really cool is you can attach a web form to anything, which means I can set up a configurable form for any of my content types. And I'm about to show you what that means. So because we have a new content type, that means we can go and add content. We could add a web form. So let me just start off by giving you the most basic use case. You want a contact form for your website. Okay? If anybody wants a contact form, there's no excuse not to use Webform. So let's do that. Let's set up a contact form. This is going to be very boring. I'm already bored. But we're going to get through this, and then I'm going to cover some interesting use cases. So what did I do? I went to content types. We need to go to add content. From add content, you are going to add a new web form. And we are going to call this contact form. And we're going to hit save. Now, I already have Form Builder installed. I don't want you to see that yet. Let me uninstall it. No, because you're going to see what it was, and then once I install it, you're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, why? It's awesome." Okay. Content. Add content. Or did I already add content? I did. Contact form. There we are. So the second that I added this thing, you are going to notice two additional tabs, one called Web Form and the other one called Results. The Web Form tab is where you go to configure your form, to set it up. How do I want to show this on my node? Results is where all that data that I said is valuable, that's where that goes. So when people fill out your form, you can go to the form and click on Results, and you'll see all their information. Right now, you see a blank node because I haven't set anything up for this web form. So let's set something up. What would you see on a contact form? Just give me some fields. What was the first thing that you normally ask for? Name. Okay. Name is a what? Is it a text field? Is it a select list? That'd be interesting if it was a select list. Like, my name is Bob. There it is. So it's not a select list. Okay, so first name. Or let's just keep it simple. Let's just say name. Name. Text field. Okay? let's talk about these before I actually even go into it. Now, Webform by default provides all these fields, and I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, well, this is very similar to setting up a content type. Well, it is very similar, except you're configuring. Keep in mind, instead of configuring what you want to data you want to collect as far as that content type, you're saying what do you want to display on this form. So you have date, you have email. A field set is like a container of other fields. A file, so you can have people upload files, although that's kind of risky. I don't know if you should use that. Very specific use cases to use that. Grid is really cool. I'll show you that. Hidden means if you just want like a hidden piece of data. I am going to show you that in this presentation. Markup, if you just want to just for them to put markup, which I also recommend you don't use. Page break, so let's say you want a wizard. You want them to fill out stuff, and then you want to click next and fill out more stuff and click next. In fact, let's make our contact form like a wizard. So then you have select options and text fields. So let's get started because I got to hurry. I always get a little too deep. So whenever you say I want to add a text field, it provides you something that's still very familiar. This looks like Field API. You have the name. The field key is what you refer is like the machine name for it. Default value. You can populate. So let's say you have your user accounts set up and you want your logged in users it to just auto-populate with their first and last name. Let's say you have those fields set up on your user. You can provide profile keys, so it'll auto-populate. It's pretty cool. Description, so if you say, enter your name. You can make it mandatory, which let's say you do not want people to submit this unless they provide that field. Unique. I don't think I have to go into detail on all these things. It's pretty self-explanatory stuff. Then the next thing you're going to do is save component. And as you can see, the name was actually added to that. What's another thing you want from a contact? Subject. So I'm just going to go through these things. That's probably a text field. It doesn't necessarily have to be provided. See how fast I'm going with this? So what's another thing? Email. That's important. And there is actually an email already there, so you can say email. Okay. User email as default. That's pretty cool. So if the user is logged in, it just populates it. Of course, you can provide token values to do that anyway. We definitely need their email address. We don't want them to submit this without an email address. And we're going to hit save. And then, of course, you might have like a body or message. Yeah. And this is going to be a text area. Yep, there it is, text area. And so this is all simple stuff, right? And you definitely want them, you just don't want them to, submit nothing to you. And you can say it's resizable. You can do all this stuff. And you're done. And now you understand why developers are so bored by this module. Because there was nothing exciting about that. It's easy, right? You hit save. You go to your view. And wow, awesome. It actually works. So I could say, Travis Tidwell. And I could provide a subject. They auto-populated my email. This is a test. And I can hit submit. And this is really cool. You can go back to the form. And then you see, if you go to results, there is my results. Now, this is pretty cool, right? It's okay. The thing about Webforms, what makes it so powerful, is that you can configure this to do just about anything. Instead of just submitting stuff, you can actually have this send you an email. Okay? Here's what's another really cool thing about it, and this is something that a lot of people probably don't know about Webforms, is that what I could actually do is I could go to Webform, where I want to configure my Webform, and in form settings, or emails. So this basically says, here are emails that I want to generate when this thing happens. And you'll notice, by default, there is nothing. So whenever this web form gets submitted, you're not going to get an email about it. Let's say you do want to get an email about it. You're just going to provide your email address here. And you say, I want to email me. And then here's another really cool thing. You can say, here's the subject, here's all the stuff. Here are the results. Here's what a lot of people don't realize. These tokens right here are more powerful than you think. In fact, you can provide information that the user didn't even know that they're providing. For example, what browser are they using? You have access to the session or the server object, and I could say HTTP. What is it? HTTP user. No, it's user agent.
Oh, okay.
So I could actually put that in there. What's awesome about this, in fact, I recommend everybody put this, is that if somebody submits something, you get an email, but you also see what they were using. Were they using Firefox? Were they using what Mac? Were they using a PC? So when you get contacted and people say, man, your site really just does not look good, you get information about it. You don't have to send a response and say, okay, what machine are you on? What browser are you using? This email gives it to you. This right here, this little nugget provides that for you. So you can provide server. You can provide a refer. So let's say, okay, I want to see what website they came from to see. So you could go server HTTP and it's called referrer. You put that in the message, you'll find out where they came from. So not only are people providing their contact information, they're providing their message, but you are getting this email that provides information about that user. Extremely valuable. And I really would like for everybody to populate these whenever they do contact forms, because that's going to provide you some really good information. So I'm going to hit Save Email Settings. And so now if somebody submits this, I'm going to get an email that tells me about this submission. And I'm also going to know what browser they were using, what computer they were on, what website they came from, and then I'm going to leave the rest to you. You can come up with some other really cool server things that are populated in the server object to populate in that.
You're going to talk about sending it to different people for different purposes?
Yes.
You're going to do that with a form?
Yeah, you can. I can do that right here. You don't have to just provide one email. Let's say that you have multiple people that are interested.
What I do is a select. So you do a select, and then that select person is who gets emailed.
Yeah. Okay, yep. So you can do that.
Question about this, and it's
that's actually
email to the correct person.
Let's do that. So let's say department. So let's say you have multiple departments. You could actually say I want select options, and you can add. And over here, that's real cool. You can say like marketing. Let's say you have support, sales. This is a pretty big use case where you want to redirect. You want basically you have like a a router that routes this. Okay, you're going to save that. Now, whenever you go to emails, you're going to add support. This is where you want to. So then, component. Wait a second. Where is that done? I've done it before. Where you can. Oh wait. I know. I think I know. Is it non-informed components? Maybe.
I think it was there.
Huh?
I think it was there. Keep going. Keep looking.
I was thinking it might be. No, it's not there.
It's on the email page. The component value or whatever. What's that?
Component. Oh yeah. Here it is. No, email subject, email address.
That's where it's from, isn't it?
How would you do that?
So look under the first
Look
one.
up there
See
at
if
the
it's
top.
got the drop down. One of those has got to have your drop down.
What's the component email up there? Do you
And then-
Not too bad. I know there's a way to do this.
It does work.
It does work. And before I get really stumped and like spend a lot of time just staring at my computer, I will figure that out because I've done it before. It's just the UI has changed since
That's
I've.
like the best case for it.
Yeah.
It goes right to the person that deals with it instead of.
Yeah. I'll have to come back to that. Maybe after this meeting I'll play around with it and figure it out and then update everybody. So regardless, you can do some really cool stuff. Okay. Let's move on to a more advanced use case. Okay. So setting up a web form. So everyone kind of gets this, right? It's not too terribly difficult. But let's do another use case where let's say you have content on your website, so stuff you didn't know, right? And you've got this article. And a lot of times people see, like after the article is done, they'll see, how helpful was this for you? And they'll have like this little thing and it says, how was the presenter? And you can fill out this little thing. You can submit it like right there on the article. And with Webforms, you can do that. So let's actually set up that use case. So you go to Add Content. We're going to add a new web form, and this is called Article. It'd be awesome if I knew how to spell it. Article Survey. Okay. Yeah, it's like developers. We're like the worst spellers ever. Okay. So the first thing, and this is, I want to show you a component called grid, because that's what that typically is. It's called a grid. And so we're going to set up a grid, and this is just going to be called the survey grid. You're going to say add. This is really sweet. So you get an x-axis and a y-axis. Okay. The first one is the x-axis. The second is the questions. So we could say strongly agree. You guys have seen these type of things before. Agree.
To be indifferent. And
Disagree. And then we're going to add one more. So you can add multiple. Strongly disagree. Okay. And over here it's like, was this? Oh,
what?
This was helpful. The author was cute. I don't know. I mean, it could be whatever. And then it could be the article was made my head hurt. Okay? And so then what we can do is we can just save that component. So this is what this thing looks like, and it's really cool. So that's awesome, right? Now, how do we get this on the article? Well, there's a really cool thing in Webform under Form Settings that allows you, it's under the Advanced Settings that's called Available as a Block. Where if you check this, that web form that you just set up is now going to be in your blocks section. So I just saved that. It's now available in my blocks. I can go to Structure, I can go to Blocks, and there it is. So I want to show that in the content. Okay? And I want to configure it to only show up on the article. Save. And then if you go to the article survey, if you go to the article, there you are. Article stuff you didn't know. But here's a problem. People submit this and you're going to get a result and you have no idea where it came from. Right? We have to add some stuff to this web form. And what we're going to add is a hidden field. That's going to tell us where it came from. So we're going to go to web form. We're going to add a hidden field called source. Good. I like it. It's going to be hidden. We're going to add it. And there is a token values here. We're going to use this. And what we're going to use is the get. And you'll have to remember this. It's going to be get Q. So in Drupal, it does everything using this Q, using a Q variable within the URL. So that's going to tell us where the source is. Get Q. You're going to hit save. There you go. It's hidden. Get Q. So now if I go to that article and I say stuff I didn't know, and I'll say, hey, was this helpful? Yeah, it's okay. Was the author cute? Oh, heck yeah, he was cute. And did it make my head hurt? No, it didn't. So there you go. So then you also notice what happened. I was redirected to the article survey. There is something which is actually broken right now. I don't want to show it to you because it's busted, and I think there's a bug or something. But there is a setting where you can do redirection location and provide a custom URL, and this should work, but it doesn't. And I need to figure out why. I didn't have time to figure out why that doesn't work. Custom URL, you just want to just send it to itself, but that doesn't work. But typically that would work, but I'll figure it out.
So there's reload current page, wouldn't that work?
I tried that too, and it didn't. It throws you to the web form for some reason. But regardless, if you go to results, you'll see I have one submission. If I view that, you will see that it came from Node 6. which was the source. So now I am able to collect information on how helpful these articles are to people. Just another use case. Let's talk about alternate UIs before I start talking about how All Players uses it, because I really want to get into that. How am I doing on time?
You're good.
I'm good? Okay.
Take full time.
So you can export all of that stuff here. So
Oh yeah.
very important.
That's a great point. And if you guys know a lot about Webform that I don't, I mean, I'm not an expert about Webform. I didn't write it or anything. Another really cool thing is you can actually export these things, and it provides like analysis, like the actual results. So you can do like analysis on your submissions. So this is pretty cool. So you could say, like, out of all my articles, how many people strongly agree that this was helpful? That's pretty good. That's pretty good analytics, right? Just for all your articles. If you provide this web form at the bottom, you are going to get statistics on how people like your stuff. That's awesome, right? You can use a table, which was table format, which is just a different way to look at it. This is cool if you can see the values of the source. Download. This is awesome. You can download it as an Excel spreadsheet. Cool, right? Yeah. I mean, it's not like interesting, but it's cool. I don't even know what clear is.
That gets rid of.
Yeah, we don't want to do that. Yeah, don't press that button. This should be like one of those buttons that like, don't press this. A big button that says don't press. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, because if you clear it, then
It's all gone.
even if you're filling up your database with this data, keep the data. Just get it off.
I send everything to a trash email account, but then everything's in that email
Yeah.
account too.
Yeah.
So you can always go back to it and
Yeah. Never delete submissions ever. You can move them to another server, whatever. Export them as a CSV, and then you can clear them. But don't delete data, because that's what's valuable. In fact, I'm going to go into really good detail over that when I talk about All Players.
If you use that method %it with the Q, does that pull the alias from the URL, or does it give you just the?
It gives you the URL they were looking at when they hit submit.
Like it's node 6 or whatever, but if you had an alias to the path.
Human-friendly readable source.
Yeah, I don't know, to be honest with you.
Translate nodes.
I don't think it. Because the Q would actually have that as it would have the alias. The Q would have the alias, so I think it probably would just put whatever's in the URL, just slap that into the variable. That's what I think would happen. So yeah, it'll give you the alias. It's worth trying out and seeing what it does. Let's talk about alternate UIs. And even if I had time, I don't think I'm going to show you Webforms alternate UI, just because it's busted to a point where I don't think it's usable. Or at least the version I tried, it just was real clunky feeling. The one that I really want you guys to check out is the Form Builder, which is awesome. And within Form Builder, it actually has a module that comes built for web forms, and you just enable that. Say Form Builder. You hit save, and let me show you what this turns your web form into. You guys are going to be blown away by this. Let's go just add a new web form. Let's say my wicked awesome form. We're going to hit save. This is what your form suddenly becomes. And watch how fast I can set this thing up. I want a date. I want a field set. I want a grid within the field set. I want a text field up here, and I can actually click on this and configure it. So here's all your displays. Let's see what else I want. I want some check boxes. Go nuts, people. This thing is awesome, right? And you just hit save, and you are done. This is why developers build forms for clients for free, because it takes us like a couple of seconds. And if any developers charge you guys for a form, then yeah, that's not cool. So anyway, Form Builder is amazing, and this actually brings you into another aspect of forms, which is allowing users to create their own forms. And I know that it's kind of hard to conceptualize, because I think Webform was built as a an administrative tool. But what I'm going to talk about next is a use case that All Players is using this for, where we are giving this power to our users, and they're blown away by it. So let me actually go through that. Does anybody have any other questions over this? I could play with this thing all day because it's just sweet. You could just drag components on there and just set it up, and it's awesome. Any questions before I move on to All Players? All right, let's talk about what All Players is doing. So, All Players groundbreaking usage of Webforms. So this is going to be a think outside of the box type scenario. Before I actually talk about this, I kind of want to just give a little bit of detail about what All Players is, what we do. We are a website that specializes in communicating between groups and the people who are involved in groups. We're about coaches, we're about parents, we're about teams, we're about family, we're about friends, we have messages, we have groups, we have photos, we have calendars, getting all of these things that you are active in, that you participate in one central spot. That is our goal. And it's all centralized around groups. The groups is basically our hot ticket item. We specialize in building groups, in managing groups, and having people join those groups, and having those people within those groups collaborate. Not only that, but having the person in charge of the group collaborate with the people in the group. Let me just go over some examples. So like YMCA, for example, they have a group. And now the first thing you notice is that it looks different. That's because we allow groups to have their own space. It's kind of like MySpace, but we don't allow them to change the markup. We just say you can pick your colors, you can put blocks right here. They can drag things around with the drag and drop thing, so they can drag a calendar on. They have full control over these links up here. They can add their own pages, they can add their own links, they can add their own. So they basically get a pre-built web presence for their groups. Here's another thing involved. There is a thing called hierarchy, group hierarchy, where we have nested levels of groups. So 2011 Fall Soccer is a group, but it might have a group above, which is YMCA Soccer, and it has multiple groups below. But this guy also has maybe teams below it. A great example, here's a teams page. Notice the colors are totally different. The point is the group admin has full control over what this does, what he can do on this, and it's completely bound. He has people that have registered for his group. And here is, so basically, this group admin has a very compartmentalized group. So here is a problem that we ran across. And this is where Webform came to the rescue. Because we had users joining groups and providing information to these groups, these users were also joining other groups and providing information to their other groups. At first, we used profile, the user module, or basically content profile, to basically say, okay, well, here's the data they provide to this group, and it'll update their content profile, and that everyone's happy, and we can, and the group admin, if you register, the group admin can see your data. Here's a really big problem. The problem is I go and I register for Spartans, and my jersey number is 00 for Spartans. And then I go over to group B and I register, but for this group it's baseball, and my jersey number is 25. What we had was a horrible situation where I go and register for one group and it completely updates this other group that's completely in a different section, and now this group is seeing that my jersey number is 25. We had a really big problem with data. Not only that, but we had no way of saying, this group, you only get access to what you put on your registration form. If the user does not give it to you, you do not have access to it. So what we did is we had a lot of brainstorming. We were saying, how do we fix this? And at first we were thinking about building this really crazy permission system around fields and using the CCK instances to basically map to certain group IDs. And all these really crazy ideas, but what we needed and what we came up with was Webform did a lot that we needed. We had to build a special module, which I'm going to talk about in this presentation, but it solved a big problem for us because a group's registration is a web form. And that information that the user provides to that group becomes like this pseudo user. It's like this layer on top of the real user that is that group's representation of that user. So we had like different metadata for people that join different groups. It sounds really complicated, and it actually really is complicated. But Webform came to the rescue. Let me give you an example. So you're a group, and you go and you set up your registration. We built a module called Webform Profile that basically maps user profiles, their profile fields, to specially keyed Webform components. So what a group admin can do is he can say, okay, I want to collect first name, last name. You notice he's not building a web form here. He's just saying, here's the data that I want. I want first name, last name, I want all these things, yada, 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 yada. He's providing all of this, and then whenever he hits submit, what we actually do is actually what the web form profile module does is it generates a web form that maps to what he wants. And then that web form becomes a piece of content within this group. So that whenever people register, what they actually do is they go to the register for the group, and then they hit the registration form. This group admin is now only asking for what that user provides, or is now only asking for what he set up. What's great about this is that a group, we now know that a group is not going to get data that he shouldn't because he only has access to what the user gives him. So it's like filling out a real form for a group. If social security number was on here or email's a great example. There are some groups that people join and they're like, I don't want to give my email to this group. You know, this is just like a running club or something. I don't want to give my email to these people. So what they do is we put email up here. And basically this is saying, hey, this is the information that this group is going to get from you. Don't submit this if you don't agree to this. So this is really cool because this provides pseudo users for every group on our site.
Now what about what is in common? Like I don't want to keep my address and every time I sign up for
Webform Profile does that.
Yeah, okay.
Because these are mapped to your profile,
Right.
Webform Profile module automatically looks at your profile and stuffs this information. And here's what's really cool. Now, there's a couple of slides that go over this. As people update their profiles, they are given an option of all the web forms. Say, here's all your web forms. Would you like to update them? Or you can select them individually and you can update them. And on the flip side of that, and I'm going to show this to you, on the flip side, if they submit a web form, it says, hey, here are some fields that you provided that were different than your profile. Do you want to update your profile with them? So you get both sides of synchronization. So that's also really cool because it keeps their profiles updated. This is what the group admin sees now. As you can see, he sees select form. This is his registration web form. It is a web form that's only attached to his group. And here, I had to write there's a patch that I wrote for web form that does this, where you can break out the fields in web form individually and put them in a view. And it's being churned right now pretty heavily. But there is a patch that does this. So that you probably won't be able to get this kind of display with web form as is. But it's coming. They're working on it. But here's the point is, the group admin can only see data that was on his form. Otherwise, he doesn't get it because the user didn't give it to him. We also allow the group to create his own web form. And eventually, we're going to expose that form builder, that really cool form builder where they can go in there and just go nuts. But really, this is all group admins want. They want predefined fields that they select and say, I want to collect this, and this, and hit submit, and we build it for them. Webform Profile, which is contrib, does that for you. And so this is what they see. A person goes to the form on the group, and this is what I was telling you about. Let's say they change a piece of data on that web form that's different than their profile. Well, we didn't want data to become branched. We wanted people to, given the option, to keep their data synced. So we said, okay, we noticed that you provided different information in your field. Would you like to update that on your profile? Webform Profile does all this for you. So now, let's do the flip side. Here's the user's account settings. This user might be a part of hundreds of groups. And he goes in and he edits his my information, which is just profiles. And let's say he goes and he changes his middle name to Michael. Well, we have a big problem here because this person has already submitted a ton of web forms. Well, look at what we do. Hey, he hits it. We're like, okay, would you like to update your web forms with that information you provided? And he can select all if he wants to select all of them. Each one of these are groups that he's a part of. And he can update them all.
What if he says no? I mean, you don't want to.
He just doesn't check it. Then that data is separate. That's his choice. He can always resubmit his profile and get this again and say, yeah, I do
want
it.
my spouse to find me, so
Yeah.
no, I want a different name.
Exactly. The point is he gets the choice. And that data is officially branched. That data is no longer in like the central repository that everyone keeps overwriting. So here's the module that I wrote for this. It's called Webform Profile. It's unfortunately only for Drupal 6, which you guys are probably going to shoot me because of that now. But I'd love some attention to this to get it up to D7 because I think it would be really, really sweet. And I think a lot of people would be able to use this in ways that are very, very radical, very groundbreaking. So, web forms are not just about forms. It's about pseudo-user information. It's about keeping track of different versions of your users on your site. It is extremely powerful if you use it in certain ways.
So it's like a sub-profile.
Yeah, can be, if you do it right. That's what the Webform Profile tries to accomplish. It tries to accomplish like this pseudo user, abstracted user information, and it allows that extra level of abstraction that you can use for, like, let's say you have different groups and that person wants to provide different information for those groups. So that's it. That's web forms, guys. Does anybody have any questions?
So if you got a group that expires, annually they have to renew. And they don't renew 1 year, and then they come back 8 years later.
Well, we don't currently have that type of functionality on our site. That'd be cool.
It'd be kind of nice to keep pulling it forward.
Yeah, that's the problem. The group admins cannot pull; they can only push. And I think that is very important. A group admin cannot pull information from a user profile because then they can gain access to information they probably shouldn't have. But they can push information. They could say, they can't push information, but a user on that group can decide to push their information down to the
So a
profile.
nonprofit, you could actually build in some tax write-off fields and produce a report at the end of the year.
Man, you're way over my head. yeah, absolutely. Any other questions? Yeah.
Don't mind my asking. I was looking at the website. Apparently, signing up and everything is free. How do you generate revenue?
Well, we have a lot of people. Now, I'm glad you asked that because you're actually going back into my very first topic of a discussion, which was value. Why is Facebook? Facebook's free, but it's worth $100 billion. It's data. Not only is it data is valuable. But not only that, but think about registrations. You go and you sign your kid up for soccer. How awesome would it be to not have to go to the park and go to a table and fill out this clunky form while the wind's blowing it away, and then having to get your checkbook out and write it, and you can just do this at home. For that convenience, we take a little bit off the top of your registration, and that goes to us. And the group admins love us for it because their parents are happy because they can register through our website. We're happy because we take a little bit off of that. Not only that, but let's talk about the actual registration process. Wouldn't it be awesome if you're a parent and you're signing your kid up for football, and on one of the registration pages it's like, okay, you're going to need pads, you're going to need this, you're going to need this, and this. Hey, you just want to buy it here? And for convenience, a lot of parents will just be like, okay, yeah, just ship me all the stuff I need in a box so that I wake up 2 days from now and I have all the stuff my kids needs on my doorstep.
So what you're saying is you've monetized the peripheral services.
Yes.
Right.
And that's how we can provide that service for free. In fact, that business model works. That if we charge for this, we wouldn't get the people to be part of it.
Like why Facebook's free.
That's why Facebook's free. Yeah. Any other questions?
Advertising.
And we haven't even discussed advertising. But you know what? I feel like we could become profitable without even advertising.
Do you
Yep.
have a specific method you used in defining your procedural for the names by form, the names that are common across forms? You must have some way to keep track.
To keep
of-
the link, I use that ID field, that machine name that I told you.
Yeah.
I create very specially named IDs that I use to map to a real profile field. And that's how I know what they're doing with that web form. Because otherwise, if you guys just install web form as is, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to keep track of, okay, this user, okay, they provided different data here than over here, but okay, I'm confused. Whereas web form profile, it just does it for you. It keeps them to where they're synchronized, or gives them the ability to synchronize if they
You
want to.
don't, well, taxonomies and so forth, you might use that?
No, I don't think so. I mean, not with web form profile. No. It's just for profile information, and it's only for Drupal. I'm sorry, we're gonna upgrade, but it's hard, people. You know, it's hard to get off that 6. Yeah.
Yeah, Travis, could you show a multi-page?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, we can do that real quick. So let's actually just go back to. Actually, I'll just add a page break.
Okay.
I'm just going to use the new UI. Okay, I'm done.
Cool.
No, seriously, I'm done. Yeah, you just go. Oh, that's lovely. But you go to view, and it should. Yep, next page. And then you just.
Surveyor.
And then you get a fatal. It works without form builder. That's probably a form builder issue. I know that works with form builder, but in regular web form, all you do is add a component called a page break, and you drag it where you want the break to be, and you hit save, and then you suddenly have a wizard that people walk through. It really couldn't be simpler, and that's why I was really afraid you guys are going to be super bored this presentation, because web form is kind of boring. It's
They're only boring when you don't know how to get clever with it.
yeah, and I feel like we've gotten clever with it. So.
It's nice of you to throw in a server error there.
Yeah. On that note, yeah, that's actually the end of my presentation. I thought of a clever way to end it. You know,
Because all your
Sir-
presentations seem to end.
yeah, some server error, something that's gone wrong. Yes.
Is every field on Webforms saved as a table so that it's more searchable? Like, I want to see all the soccer players who are male and more than 34 years old.
You can query it, but the queries are hellacious because the data is kept in one single table. But you can formulate queries to build the data you want, but you've got to be a SQL wizard to get it using SQL. Where you have to basically link the table on different component IDs, and I think node ID and component ID. You have to link that same table a bunch of times to bring in the data that you want from the user.
Like I said, you just export it.
But yeah, so yes, you can query it, but it is a painful query. So, yep. Anybody else?
Also, there's a nice GUI interface because Drupal forms are just terrible looking.
Mhm.
But you can just drag and drop and make all of those components like really nice looking. Without doing all the CSS, it's just like drag and drop where you want.
Yeah, it's beautiful. So it's come a long way. I mean, just for building forms, I think it's fantastic.
Is that the web form UI thing that you didn't show us?
No, Form Builder does some of that where you can drag and drop.
Well, but it still comes out.
Oh,
straight
just like
in
a-
one line. I mean, this you can just resize all of the lengths of each of the.
I think we found who's going to present next time. I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I
Sounds
don't know
really
if it's on it. I mean,
Yeah.
but I must have done something too.
All right. Any other questions before we bring Tom up here? All right, guys. I thank you so much for listening. Appreciate it.